Please welcome to the show, Craig and Mark Kielburger. Hey, bud. Thank you, man. How are you?
Great. How about you?
Thanks, Mark. How's it, guys? Very well, thanks. Okay, you're in trouble. You're in trouble when you have me on the front cover of your book.
What a good-looking
You're
guy.
in trouble right there.
Yeah. Hey, oh, wait, can they actually see that? Probably not. Very handsome guy on the front cover is all I can say.
What we're going to do is we're just going to Photoshop in a picture of George Clooney. Everything will be well. Living me to wait. Welcome back. How's life?
So good. Yeah. So good.
Congratulations. You have a baby.
Yes. Lily Rose, the light of my life, 5 months old. So happy to be dead.
How tough is the adjustment? How interesting is the adjustment?
It's interesting. It's a little lack of sleep. My wife would say that more than I would typically. But it's like the coolest thing. And the work that we do becomes that much more relevant and important.
Tell me the idea of Living Me to We, the guide for socially conscious Canadians, because I know that's always the biggest question. How do you get people here to be involved?
Well, you know, so we're patriotic, massively patriotic. But defining what makes us such a great country, it's more than just Timbits and the beer commercials and everything we assume. I think what makes us so amazing as Canadians is we look out for each other. We're a compassionate country, and we've traveled the world. And the more that we travel, the more we come home and realize how lucky we are. There are a lot of problems, but how lucky we are. But for Canadians, we wanted to put something together with Canadian celebs, with Canadian stories, with Canadian facts and stats and Canadian stores to buy things at, and entirely Canadian on from the morning you wake up to how you go to bed at night and how do you make small changes to make the world a better place.
Cool. Now, why was it important to tell this story, the Canadian version?
Well, we asked all the time, well, I'm a young person, or I'm an adult, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a parent, and I really am inspired by social change. I just don't know what to do, or I don't have enough time to do it. And it's like kind of that two-piece that's just really, really important. And both those pieces come together, and it's literally, you know, from the time you wake up, as Craig mentioned, to the type of coffee you drink, to the fact that, you know, when you're sitting there and you're at your ATM and you say, do I want a receipt, do I not want a receipt? If we all pressed no, as Canadians, if we all pressed no, we would save 16.5 million trees a year.
You have a lot of people in here, a lot of people I really respect, Seamus O'Regan, you know, not just that, Margaret Atwood's in this one as well, Rick Hansen, you guys. Who surprised you?
There were a lot of them that surprised me. You know, Anne Murray talks about going green before it was the cool thing to do, and how she had to literally battle with people when she was leaving the grocery store to use plastic, and to skip the plastic and use a reusable bag.
Or Rick Hansen, who loves fishing. Yeah. Which is kind of so random, but you think about it.
He started a sturgeon protection society. Like something we've never known about this Canadian man in motion icon who was also protecting the environment.
What did you guys think about the Kony 2012? And the reason I'm bringing it up is you had mentioned these communities here. I'd never seen a reaction like that to anything. The amount of messages I got from people who you wouldn't think were otherwise engaged suddenly were. And then almost as instantly, the backlash happened and was finished. What did you guys make of the Kony 2012?
Unlike anything we've ever seen before also. It shows the enormous potential that exists if you can channel it. So that was an example where you got the conversation going, but the what's next? And that what next is the conversation, which is the hardest part.
Well, the what next got crushed by the backlash.
Yes.
Fair or otherwise.
Absolutely. And that's I think a lot of people want to help, and that shows how many people want to help and the power of social media and to drive social change. But the what next that's the part where you know, we have 2.4 million people on Facebook following We Day, and we struggle with trying to figure out how do you translate that into action. Every group is trying to make that leap, and that what next is where activism isn't just slacktivism, but you can take that new conversation and with the right support and the right, you know, coaching and guidance and programs in schools and whatever else we need to do to close that gap to turn that awareness into action.
Have you ever had your own mini meltdown just going, oh my God, it's getting worse?
Well, not like
Kony. Well, the Invisible Children, that was a legendary breakdown, but I mean, I think a lot of people are played a part in that, for sure. But have you had those, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you're sitting there and you're looking at these mass levels of poverty, and you're in India, or you're overlooking, you know, Sierra Leone, and even though Sierra Leone is so much better, it is so poor, and you're just saying, we could build another school, and we could build another school, and you know what, at the end of the day, we're really not going to make a difference in these communities. And that's why, even though we'll continue to build schools, because every drop helps and every drop counts, but that's why we have to change how we vote, how we shop, how we consume, and how we live here in Canada.
You've done a really good job getting corporations to get involved in those big days. And I wonder, how do you manage that? Because when you especially have a young audience, How do you manage that? You just don't want to get them all in the room to sell them a movie. Well,
it's actually really important to check and to select the kind of corporations that are really aligned with our values. And there are corporations out there that very much are so. And it's finding also not to sell them a product, is to talk about what those corporations are doing to change the world. Because in order to change the world, yes, you need a nonprofit sector, and you need government, but we have to engage the corporate sector. And we have to do it so powerfully. We're not doing a good enough job collectively as a society to tap into that power and that resource. So when corporations come up, they don't say, hey, buy my product. It's, look, this is a cause cause that we care about, and this is how you can get engaged in that cause as well. So it's a very different conversation.
At a certain point in your career, when you've built up so much momentum, you get associated with different organizations, and at a certain point, you don't have control over everything you're a part of. How do you manage that? And I give you an example. Okay. Lots of controversy about Scouts Canada. Or the Scouts,
yes.
Which is an organization you've been involved with.
Yeah, no, yeah. I grew up through Scouts. I was a Beaver, a Cub, a Scout, and I now serve on their board of directors because it was an organization that I loved. And yes, CBC, obviously some really hard-hitting news that came out, challenging some of the practices of Scouts when it came to the issue of pedophiles, looking historically at some of the records of something, an individual named Turley in particular. And, here's an organization where unbelievably good people, 100,000 youth members. If I had kids, I have absolute faith to sign my kids up today into the programs. But absolutely, every organization has to do better.
So as a board member, when you get that news story, what happens to what's that like?
Furious. Every person is. Every person in the organization is. Because in a lot of cases, it's things, of course, no one can change because it's historic. But absolute furious, and I can tell you, every board meeting we've had since, the only thing that has been on the agenda for 95% is child protection.
I know that's something we deal with on this show all the time. We go after the Catholic School Board all the time because of their position on gay-straight alliances. And I know that you guys are an organization that talks about inclusivity and all of that. How do you manage that relationship?
Yeah, so as an organization, we're not religiously affiliated in any way, but both Craig and I did go to Catholic schools, and we're proud.
As did I, yeah.
And proud Catholics.
As I'm not.
Okay.
But to be clear.
Fair enough, all right. Nevertheless, the reason we work with both school districts is because of the fact that, of course, they engage young people, but especially the Catholic schools, because that sense of social justice is so ripe and prolific in the teachings. But, of course, it is a challenge as well, and it's reconciling, our political beliefs with some of these other challenges. But at the same time, there's so many people in the Catholic school boards and within the Catholic community who are very progressive on these questions as well. And we don't try to debate those issues per se. We really want to engage kids, but we see some good momentum and some good, honest conversations.
Stick around. More with the Kielburgers right after this.
Crazy.
Home videos from 85
Seriously?
Wow. Was that you or me?
That's you.
That's it.
Oh, that's you. Yeah.
There's the young Kielburger clan.
That's crazy. Man, you guys have archives.
Yeah.
Seriously. CBC, what do you have back there?
We have some assorted home videos from you from back in the day.
Wow, that's impressive.
Right, really quick, anthropology. Are you ready?
Yes. I don't know, but okay.
What's your brother's worst habit?
Eating a lot on the road, but nothing of any carbs.
Nothing of any carbs?
Yes. No.
Are you afraid of carbs?
Yes. Yes, he is. I'll answer it for him, yes.
This is raw broccoli
yes,
the whole time.
exactly.
All right, so what's your brother's worst habit?
He always starts every time we do a talk or anything by saying he's the more handsome brother.
Oh, nice. That drives you crazy?
But it's accurate.
But he eats no carbs.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Right.
true. That's true.
Your parents obviously highly influential in your lives in a positive way, right? What's the worst advice they've ever given you?
I'd say it wasn't the worst, but maybe the most controversial probably would be, so our parents left the home and moved out, leaving us as kids, because we literally took it over as Free the Children.
They moved out of your house?
They moved out.
Is that allowed?
It is, I guess, evidently, for more legal reasons, it might be a challenge, but nevertheless.
For literally, there was that teary moment where you see the kids embrace the parents as if the kids are going off to college, and it was the parents leaving.
Is that? Oh God! Did you feel any abandonment issues over that?
I felt guilty that we kicked our parents out of our house.
And we're still working through it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay, name one person who you think needs a kick in the ass.
Oh my goodness. I would say our Prime Minister.
Oh.
Is that okay?
You can say whatever you want.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, because I'm sure you don't want the RCMP to come after you, you don't mean a physical kick in the ass, you mean an
intellectual, yes.
How so?
How so? We're not feeling so good about some of the recent policies, especially around pulling Canada out of Kyoto and many activities as well. So I think Canada could do a little bit better on the world stage.
Is it tough to walk the line? You want to engage, but not get too heavily political? Is that a tough thing to walk?
Yes, but sometimes we let our voices be known on national television.
Well, it was early enough. I was going to ask you if you had Harper's ear for 10 minutes us, what would you tell them now? We know.
Yes.
So when nobody's watching,
Yes.
nobody's around,
Yes.
and you crank a song to dance to, which one is it?
To dance to? That's a great question. Oh, you know, it's the Sean Desmond dance.
Yes.
No, there is. Hear
Yes,
me out on
yes.
this. There's actually a We Day dance, so all of our staff have to know the moves to it.
You don't
It's
actually
this
dance
fist
to a
pump.
We Day dance, do you, at home?
No, well, not at home, but in front of a stadium, in front of 20,000 of your closest friends.
What's your private dance song, though?
Probably I Will Survive. Because sometimes I'm not sure if I will. So there you go.
Dude, it's always a pleasure to see both of you guys. Thank you so
see you
much.
again.
Right
Thank
on, man. The Kielburgers, everybody. Living Me to Eat, the guide for socially conscious Canadians. We'll be right back.
Good looking
You're in
guy.
trouble right there.
Yeah.
Oh, can they actually see that? Probably not. Very handsome guy in the front cover is all I can say.
What we're going to do is we're just going to Photoshop in a picture of George Clooney. Everything will be well. Living Me to Eat. Welcome back. How's life?
So good.
Hey, please welcome to the show, Craig and Mark Kielburger. Hey, bud. Thank you, man. How are you?
Great. How about you?
Thanks, Mark. That's it, guys. Very well, thanks. Okay, you're in trouble. You're in trouble when you have me on the front cover of your book.
So good.
Congratulations, you have a baby.
Yes, Lily Rose, the light of my life, 5 months old, so happy to be dead.
How tough is the adjustment? How interesting is the adjustment?
It's interesting. It's a little lack of sleep. My wife would say that more than I would typically. But
Massively patriotic. But defining what makes us such a great country, it's more than just Timbits and the beer commercials and everything we assume. I think what makes us so amazing as Canadians is we look out for each other. We're compassionate.
it's like the coolest thing, and the work that we do becomes that much more relevant and important.
Tell me the idea of Living Me to Eat, the guide for socially conscious Canadians, because I know that's always the biggest question. How do you get people here to be involved?
Well, you know, so we're patriotic.